Yeah, I'm getting ready to tear this apart. Big thing is we need to make sure the years were kind to us as far as the crankshaft. It looks like it was pretty well due for some service at the time of parking, but it's been apart for a long time, so you see just years of oil and grime. So we've separated the cases. We get to the crankshaft or transmission, clutch, primary chain, kind of investigate everything. Big thing on the Laverdas is we want to make sure our crankshaft bearings, which we will more than likely replace just as a as a measure, preventative maintenance. So we want to inspect, once the crank is out, we're going to inspect the webbings, which is important underneath the crankshaft here, to make sure the metal is in good shape, doesn't have any pitting, doesn't have any oddities. We may even do some x-raying and some metal, some checking out of the metal to make sure there's no cracking or anything like that. Here, primary chain drive. We may even decide to upgrade this to something. There are modern belt systems and things like that that'll really make it a little more reliable, a little more performance oriented, less rotating mass, all that fun stuff. So, yeah. So we're gonna get the crankshaft out of here and take a look. The first thing I've got to do is remove this primary chain here. We don't necessarily at this point need to take off our sprockets or anything like that. I can just kind of move everything around once we get it loose. We can easily raise up the transmission and see if we can get this chain off. It's important we don't lose anything or get anything out of order, at least not at this point during our inspection. You can see everything looks pretty good here from just a quick observation. Obviously you can see our seals have long been deteriorated. So the unique thing about motorcycle engines is we share engine oil with the transmission oil and clutch oil and all of that. So it's very, very important oil changes are done, especially on these older air-cooled engines. So now I will try. You can see I've already removed. This will be our cam chain. It'll go up to our cylinder head to drive the camshafts. I've already removed it. Things like this, with a build such as this, we're replacing as a matter of course. There's no reason for a part as inexpensive as this to cause damage that's not so much. So we'll replace these and inspect all of our gears and whatnot, make sure everything's in good shape, all our sprockets. So you can see this crankshaft is actually a ball bearing type, very similar to some of the two-strokes at the day. And much more modern engines have plain bearings where oil is the only thing between the crank and the case. Here we have large ball bearings, which again we'll replace and inspect the crankshaft so we know that everything. It's not fun getting to this point, so anything you can replace that's easily replaced or out of the ordinary, you do it now. So. See if it'll release. Oh, success! Suck it out of here. This one has some girth. Alrighty. So I'm going to put this here. Let me get it where we don't roll anywhere for now so we can inspect it. Here you can see the case. Case is in good shape, just dirty, grimy. We'll go through here, all these oil passages for our bearings, we'll make sure that they're clean. We're probably going to have the case, take it, have it cleaned, have it slurry or soda blasted or wet sand or wet blasted or whatever we decide when we get to that part. These studs here are very important to the rest of the cylinder head and cylinder structure, being that they're got some age on them. We'll take these out and put more modern, much stronger equipment back in, because we don't know how many times these things have been torqued or what damage the years have put on them. So we're dripping a little bit. Other things, we'll check the crankcase vent system. We'll check the entire unit for cracking or anything like that we need to take care of. But otherwise, the cases are just the case. The lower case actually has our shifting drums and our oil pump built into it. We will extract all of that, check for operation, make sure there's no, we'll inspect our forks, make sure there's no bending or excessive wear. We'll check the oil pump gears. Pretty ingenious how they built that all internally into the case back then. Can definitely tell the racing heritage. Then of course we'll clean it within an inch of its life. So. I'm going to set those cases aside for the time being. Clean up a little here and take a look at our crank a little closer. Of course, we have an area over here designated for engine teardown. It's well away from, we keep our cleaners and our sonic tank and carburetor cleaning and all that over here. Kind of keep everything away from any clean open engines and things like that. But it's a necessary evil for sure. So we're going to move the crankshaft over here, kind of give it something contrasting for us to look at. But the big deal with this particular Laverda engine is it's a 180-degree crank. What does that mean? It's pretty simple. When these outer two cylinders are all the way at the top of the stroke, the middle cylinder is actually going to be all the way at the bottom of the stroke. So you can see here from this representation. Most of your triple engines actually have 180, so it's going to look a lot different. It'll look a little more like a step progression. This was done for a large power pulse and trying to just get more torque curve, get just a lot of things out of it. It's the Slater brothers design. I'm going to learn about it more in this process. I hope I get to meet some folks that were involved in it, get some information that not a lot of people know anymore. I mean, these engines are dying out, and so are we. So we will learn and pass along as much as we can. So yeah, very interesting, very odd shaking beast this is, because you can see it's not exactly balanced. Because of that, we get some vibes in places, but you sacrifice some of that for speed and performance. So, right. This is a multi-piece crankshaft. So, unlike your cast modern crankshafts, this crankshaft will come apart with each of its throws. And there's actually a set of needle bearings under the big end, as we call it. That's the big end of the rod. Instead of a plain bearing, there is a roll or a needle bearing, roller bearing type cage. We will extract those and again replace them more than likely. It's just, again, when you're engine building and these performance engines, and while we can still get parts, we're gonna replace all that stuff. But we'll inspect the webbing and the actual surface here where our bearing, our journals, all of that. You can see that's a nice representation of what our crank rod's on. So it actually has individual rollers, rolling on a race. Like I said, where your modern engines don't do that. So we'll split this apart and have everything checked out and start building it up. So we'll do the same with our transmission. We're gonna. All these are your dogs here, so that's what actually engages your gears there, as you see, as you select them. We're going to inspect the dogs, which these teeth are referred to. Check the bearings in these and replace as needed. You can see here, we're going to pull it there. That's going to pull the clutch apart. Those are all our clutch plates. Here's the grooves that they run in and out of. And now with this washer, you can see the importance of leaving stuff, kind of keeping track of where everything goes there. So this will actually go right here. So kind of rod right there. Pretty wild. Interesting way. No, there we go. Interesting way of going about it for sure. See these rubber bits here? And this impregnated metal here, if you can see that. I hope this isn't. Those are your cush drives. So basically they're absorbing the impact of initial gear selection. If you don't have that, which more than likely the race models didn't, although I don't know that for a fact, hopefully we'll find out, it's just going to be a much more dramatic gear engagement. And for street purposes, we don't want to jar people's teeth out. so we do things, a lot of people may have seen this on their actual rear sprocket drive. We'll have these as well. So it's just kind of dampening and making the experience a little better for the rider. In racing, a lot of that is foregone for sheer performance. We don't really care how it shifts in traffic because we're just, trying to beat the other guys. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. We pulled our oil screen. There was nothing on it, which is a good sign. It could be a bad sign too right now, but there's no metal. Doesn't appear to have had any kind of internal failure while running. It's just all really old. This is, and I'll find out more about it, looks like some support or guide for our cam chain drive. It's very interesting and very foreign to what I've seen, but that's the beauty of this. This is our crankcase vent, dipstick, of course. That is our primary chain, which we probably will replace. I'd like to see a belt drive to get rid of the oil in the primary and just make it grip a little better. This is heavy. You can imagine a rubber belt being half that weight or a third of that weight. Well, that's rotating mass. So any of that rotating mass that the engine doesn't have to deal with, it's going to spin up faster, which equals more performance. So little weight savings here with all this rotational transfers into several horsepower when it gets to the wheel. And of course, we'll dyno tune it when it's all done and find out just how much. So yeah, bottom end's looking pretty good. We got a lot of work to do to disassemble. Find the right information and the right people, which we're making contacts every day. People that have done this before and people that worked at the factory. So finding out all kinds of stuff about it and meeting all kinds of people that had a lot to do with these back in the day. So that's the fun for me as a motorcycle nerd, is to find things like that out. So yeah, it's looking good. I think Neale's got a winner.